Who are you? What are you doing here?
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. EQA Nostalgia here with some amazing news for Resident Evil fans. Resident Evil 2 is getting a remake. After I don't know how many years of pleading with Capcom and begging them and petitions and fan groups and forums and all sorts of shit, they're finally going to be remaking the game, and it's just between Final Fantasy VII and this, it's just amazing, and I don't even know what to say. When I saw it on Facebook the other day, they were kind of like hinting around. They were asking people, what would you like to see in Resident Evil 2 remake? They were saying this shit on the official page on Facebook. I was like, oh no way, don't even tease me. So I mean, immediately I jumped in there. I'm like, all right, no over the shoulder bullshit. This has to be legit. It has to be like exactly like the Resident Evil 1 remake was. Only it has to be done with Resident Evil 2. But just today, I got out of work and I saw that they dropped like another hint where they came out and they said, this is something I brought to my boss, one of the guys who wants to work on it. I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can see it. And it reads as follows: Hello, Resident Evil fans. This is H again. Right after the Resident Evil HD Remaster project was finished, I actually started putting together my ideas for this Resident Evil 2 project. So I just brushed it up and went to see my boss to present the basic concept of the project already. And as you can see, he's holding like the concept. And it actually says confidential underneath his thumb. I don't know if you can make it out there, but it just reminds me of like the Resident Evil files that they released a while ago. I think it was in the strategy guide for Code Veronica X. But at any rate, it's just amazing news. Now, they didn't come right out and say, we're definitely doing this, but why would they do that? That would just be a dick move if they didn't plan on bringing it out. That's pretty much officially saying Resident Evil Remake is going to happen. And I got a lot to say about it, naturally, and I've preached about Resident Evil 2 on this channel for a while. It's one of my favorite games of all time, hands down. I absolutely loved Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, basically the original style of Resident Evil. And when they moved into the over-the-shoulder stuff, I found those games fun in a different way, but they were never Resident Evil to me. And it was really strange. I think a lot of us felt the same way. After Resident Evil got a remake and Resident Evil 0 came out, we felt like, okay, where's Resident Evil 2? It didn't make sense that they didn't remake that game, because it was extremely popular. It was many people's favorite. I would hazard to say that it was like everybody's really number one game in terms of Resident Evil. When you think of Resident Evil 2 is just, for a long time it was held as the best, and then 4 came out and a new generation came in and they heralded that as the best, which just, I love that game, but it's just, I don't know, man. I'm so classic with Resident Evil and survival horror that it just wasn't the same. If I had to pick out of the newer games, definitely I would put 4 up there. It's definitely the best of the newer style Resident Evil games. After that, I think they really started to drop the ball. Revelations 2 was alright. Revelations was alright. I think the last Resident Evil that I really, really loved was Outbreak File 2. I was a huge fan of the Outbreak games. Hopefully we'll get an HD remake of those. Just re-release that shit in HD, get the servers back online, because I really miss playing that game. I know there's a kind of like a private server thing you can do, but it's a bitch to set that up, man. I just don't have the patience for it, and there's not a lot of people playing it because it's a bitch to set it up. And I know I'm getting off topic here, but Outbreak was just, it was such an amazing game, and it was underappreciated. But back onto the Resident Evil 2 discussion, they absolutely have to go old school with this. If they do over the shoulder, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm still gonna play it, but I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna be seriously pissed. It has to be the classic camera, the fixed camera angles with the tank style controls. I mean, they can throw in the controls that were more modern that they put into the HD remake of the game. Whatever, that's fine, I don't care. I'm not going to use that shit. I'm not, but I can't imagine it any other way. The only thing I really want them to do is to expand on the story the same way that they did with the Resident Evil remake. When they added the whole Lisa Trevor storyline that wasn't there in the original game. They added areas that weren't in that game, and all it did was expand upon it and improve it, and it made it the definitive version of that game. Some people will argue that. I know there's purists, and the first time I read somebody say that the remake was awful, I was like, what? It's basically exactly like the original, except they just added extra shit like defensive items and new areas, and way better graphics. But the biggest thing here is that the graphics, they gotta get them, they gotta look amazing. It has to be next gen graphics. I expect them to look freaking insane. That's like the biggest thing, I think, is the graphics in terms of what they do, because that's really what we wanted to begin with when we were asking for a remake. They get that down in the core gameplay that was there, they got a winner. You really don't have to do much to it. Don't change too much. Like, if they have it so that you can like walk and shoot, that would be cool. That was something they added in Resident Evil Outbreak File 2. I always liked that feature. But maybe add defensive items. I don't know. There's some things that they can add. Maybe put the Crimson Heads in there that were in the original remake. That would be pretty cool to see that. But anything too crazy that deviates away from the original formula, I don't think the fans are going to be interested in that at all. Now, what would be really cool is if they added something with the whole Brad Vickers thing. I know many of you remember Brad Vickers. He was the pilot, and I think it was for Alpha Team. I can't remember which Alpha Bravo Team. His nickname was Chicken Heart because he was a chicken shit, and he ended up getting killed. And in Resident Evil 2, there was that Easter egg. If you didn't pick up any items when you got to the police station, he'd be in the courtyard, in the stairway area. And if you killed him, you got the boutique key. And then later on, we learned in Resident Evil 3 that he was killed by Nemesis. It would be cool if maybe you got to see a little bit more of what happened with him. Maybe you can play as him up until the point where things went bad. So it'd be nice to see like extra game modes. I know they had a mode. I don't think it was Mercenaries mode. I think that came in 3. But they had a mode where you went through the police station. I think you were disarming bombs, and you could play as Hunk. This is where they introduced Hunk. This is where they introduced Tofu. Characters that have become pretty big. Well, Tofu hasn't really been a thing, but Hunk definitely was really big. So I would like to see maybe some sort of online merc mode, something to improve upon it, like afterwards that you can dick around with your friends, some new modes. And one of the coolest things that I really liked about Resident Evil 2 was that there was a scenario A and B for both characters, and it kind of changed things a bit. That gave it a lot of replayability, and I remember going through and doing all that shit. I hope they retain that. I hope that's still there. And I hope there's enough in there to change, like, not change it, but to add to it where there's new stuff. So yeah, essentially what I want to see is just a gorgeous remake of the classic formula with additional stuff added in there. One thing that's worth keeping in mind, and I think it's important to mention, is that back then we were more accustomed to shorter games. And Resident Evil 2, I did a speed run on it, and I think I beat it around the 2-hour mark. You can blaze through that game, and that doesn't really fly by today's standards. So I don't really see them releasing it for like $30. I don't think they're gonna do that like the way that they did. I think it was $20 or $30 for the remake of Resident Evil 1 in HD, but you have to figure they were able to just port that over, and then they brushed it up. They didn't have to like build it from the ground up. Resident Evil 2 Remake is going to be built from the ground up. There's no way they're not going to charge at least $40 some odd for it. And if it's too short, I think that's going to hurt it, at least in the eyes of newer gamers. So I don't know what they could do to add on to it. I was thinking possibly include Resident Evil 3, but that would be a lot of work, so I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know if they do that. I had the idea of a reboot as the series started to get shitty. After 6, I was thinking, all right, we need to just reboot this again and go into a third-person view, get off the over-the-shoulder shit, kind of compromise, maybe not have completely fixed camera angles, but make Resident Evil 1 and 2 and 3 all together in like an open world where you can play through all of that. It was just something I was thinking about. So I was thinking maybe add 2 and 3 together, but I don't think they'll do that. I really don't. Well, I don't know how they can really improve upon it in terms of length, other than giving it a really cool mercenary mode. I mean, myself personally, I'm okay with it being the original length. If they add like an extra hour's worth of content, that would be awesome. I'm definitely gonna buy it no matter what. I'm all over this. Now we know that Shinji Mikami's not gonna be working on this. Well, we don't know for a fact, but I suspect he won't be. And he was a lot of the magic of the original Resident Evil games, and he even did the original the remake for Resident Evil 1. If he's not on board with this, I'm kind of worried about that. But at the same time, The Evil Within, that game really let me down. I know I might piss some people off with that, but that game just disappointed the shit right out of me. I had fun with it all the way up, I think it was like chapter 10, where it just started to become really frustrating. And yeah, I didn't like the direction he took that in. But if he went back to the classic roots and he did get on board with this, that would be really cool. Now Capcom did go on record and say they wanted to release a new Resident Evil annually. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Resident Evil. And there's people saying, well, we don't want the remake. They're on Facebook, on the official Resident Evil page, saying, oh, we don't want this. We just want a new Resident Evil done in the classic style. Why can't we have both? You know what I mean? Some people are just dickheads. People have been begging for this. Don't even fucking go there. I just want to reach through the screen and smack people that say shit like that. Are you out of your fucking mind, dude? We've been dying to get this. Fans have been dying to get this for years and years. The two most hyped, anticipated games that people have wanted, in my opinion, were Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 2 and Final Fantasy 7. Yeah, Resident Evil 7. I definitely want to see Resident Evil 7, but I'm hoping that they reboot it. I really do. I want to see an open world Resident Evil. Some people might be like, no, but that's what I want to see. I want to see them get off of this over-the-shoulder bullshit that I've never really liked at all. It's very awkward. I don't care for it. I think they need to back up a bit and get it into a proper third person. Either go into third person or just go straight into first person. Fuck it. I don't need my character's head and neck and shoulders in the way and shit. But the whole shooter thing, I think it's played out. I don't think it needs to be like that. I think it needs to go back to somewhere between the originals and something new. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being able to play all through the mansion area, the Arklay Mountains, and down into Raccoon City, all just completely open world and amazing. That would be really cool. I know I'm just kind of shoehorning that in there. This is supposed to be about Resident Evil 2, but I'm so very passionate about Resident Evil, and I've got an insane amount of nostalgia for this franchise. And for a while there, it was looking really bad. I mean, I was at the point where I didn't want to play anymore, because it's just not the same. It's one thing to change your game. It's another thing to change it into a completely different genre, where it's not even. It went from survival horror into just an action shooter. How can you do that? You're losing your fan base. I mean, like the people who built you up, you're just like alienating them for like a new Call of Duty generation, and it pissed me off so much. So it's good to see that they're taking this seriously. They actually care about what the original fan base wants. And, we did see some people working on their own versions of Resident Evil 2. There's a fan-made version out there now. You can check it out on YouTube. It's being worked on. I'm definitely still interested in seeing that. I know one of the versions has the classic view and then over-the-shoulder view as an option. It would be cool to mess around with that a little bit. And we even have an indie developer right now, Creazen Studios, who was toying around with the idea of making this game Infected, and I covered that a while back on my channel, and then they just kind of went silent and started working on another game they had called Dollhouse. But Infected was looking like the spiritual successor to the Outbreak games. I don't know what's going on with those guys. They just hopefully they get their shit together and they start working on that game again, because I have people really hyped for that on this channel. But at any rate, this is starting to get a little long. I don't want it to go too long. I'm extremely excited about this. I think it's about damn time that they finally took us serious. And yeah, man, I hope they do it right. I hope they don't mess it up. Same thing I said with Final Fantasy VII. Don't fuck it up, please. Get it right. So in closing, you guys can look forward to hearing a lot more from me on this subject. As news comes out, I will be covering it. If you're new to my channel, I ask that you please subscribe. Please remember to leave a like so other people can see this video, and it helps my channel to grow. I thank you guys for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video.
Hold your fire! I'm a human!